Hello and welcome to the last AV Club and probably the last Irish NFL show episode of the year of our Lord 2025. Thank you so much for sticking with us over the course of the year. I say to all of us who have spent the course and made sure they stayed with us so often, but of course, because we record at Christmas time and we record during the daytime, myself and Craig Rigdon are here and Ben Costello is in work, which is something I'm not. So, Craig, how are you?
Yeah, good. It's been an interesting week, I guess. We were just talking off air there about different permutations that we've got coming up and just how crazy that everything is.
So I'm going to need you to explain to me how the Falcons winning last night means that they can somehow mess up the Buccaneers getting into the playoffs, even if the Buccaneers beat the Panthers this weekend. And I'm saying that because you were a man. Now, I come to these things. I have my notebook, as the YouTube viewers can see here. I put up a Word doc where I take down some notes and I sort of grab things from a few different websites that I like in terms of getting stats and stuff like that. But Craig is sitting here with 3 pages of notes. And when he said that, I actually didn't know whether that was a lot or little. Because Craig seems like he's just like this exploding encyclopedia. I feel like, I don't know if 3 pages is like low for your standards, or is that like, do you even need notes?
I do. A lot of my stuff is written in notes. 3 is quite a lot, actually, for this show. It is. My biggest problem is that I can't just look at stats and formulate. So I almost write my notes as if I'm writing an article, which is something that I used to do. So a lot of my notes are like fully fledged paragraphs.
Yeah, see, that's it. I love a bullet note. I have a bullet note, JAX equals 5,000 yards or whatever. But this is the thing, because as part of this conversation, we're going to talk about Monday Night Football last night. We're going to look ahead to some of the permutations. Like I said, Craig's going to explain to us what the Falcons win means. Seahawks fans are obviously very happy about it. It means they have probably a good chance of better seeding, but really they need to beat the 49ers at the weekend. But later on, we're going to talk a little bit more about Coach of the Year and who we think could potentially get the nod for that. But so let's start on Monday Night Football, because I went to bed last night and I watched the first phase of play, and I got up as far as when the Falcons went up. They managed to get an offensive touchdown. This is a game where Kirk Cousins maybe looked cleaner but not explosive. Bijan Robinson came out, but like, Matt Stafford threw 3 interceptions, had a pick 6 early in the game, was very fortunate to have another pick 6 in the second half, only for the grace of the fact that the Falcons player sort of had the foot on the touchline, meant that it couldn't go back. And we're sitting here, and the LA Rams, who we talk so much about the Niners and the Bears and all these other teams have so many strengths, and I still sat back and I was like, the Rams are the only team I think are fully rounded. But this is their second loss in a row now, and we dropped this big one, which we were not expecting. And Matt Stafford, MVP Matt Stafford, throwing 3 interceptions at a really, really key part of the year. Just a bizarre result, and really sets up for an interesting final week.
Yeah, and I think by all accounts, the NFL scheduling team did not expect the Falcons to win this by the fact that they put that Bucks and Panthers game on early in the window on Saturday night, I believe it is, and now the Falcons can change that result very easily with their game against the Saints on Sunday, and it's now come back to bite them. I guess everybody, myself included, in fact, I think it was a clean sweep amongst the 7 of us, thought that the Rams would easily handle this Falcons team, and the Falcons tried their best to obviously bring back memories of that Patriots Super Bowl where they decided that they were going to run up the score and then not turn up in the second half.
I did love how Joe Book mentioned that in the commentary. Of course, himself and Troy Aikman, who called that Super Bowl. It was like, am I cursing the Falcons again here? Oh, it was almost too sweet.
It was, and it felt like it was going to go that way. Obviously, I didn't have the luxury of staying up last night to watch it, so I did watch it this morning knowing full well what the score was, but the game did not go the way that I thought it was. I just think that the Rams reliance on Puka and Adams is very evident when one of them are not there, and maybe more evident when Adams is out and not Puka, because they did not seem to be able to get going last night. And the fact that Stafford fell off so much with Adams out means that they are going to be quite reliant on the fact of having him back for the playoffs to make sure that they can make the run that they need to make, because defensively they weren't awful against the Falcons. Jared Verse had that blocked field goal that he took back the entire way, and he made the Falcons bench know that he was taking it back the entire way with his little gesture to them. But yeah, it's just a really odd game. And there's been a lot of controversy over that last play, or second to last play, should I say, with the Puka Nacua catch, no catch. To me, that's a clear no catch. I don't see how people are saying it's a catch.
So I think they were sort of maybe swayed by the commentary there, because the commentator saw one particular angle, and in one particular angle, it looks like there's an optical illusion. It looks like the ball is somehow sticking to his left glove, and we're like, oh, this is a clear catch. And then all the ESPN rules analysis and Joe and Troy were like, that's a clear catch. And then they cut to a different angle where you're going to see like sort of parallel to the sideline. Oh no, the ball isn't in his hands. It's an optical illusion. They were like, and they got fierce quiet after that. And I think that maybe just been swayed by the commentary there. But you're right. I mean, that was that catch was almost too insane that it actually couldn't have happened. But I think I found it unusual the fact that the Rams were relying on something like that to even be with a chance of winning this game. They were 21-0 down at halftime. But one thing I found interesting with this, the two interceptions that were thrown in the first half both in the second quarter by Matt Stafford. There was one where there was they get the snag, and it was a Watts took the ball down, and there was Ellis was also trying to tackle Smith on one sideline. And there was the second one there when he sort of passes straight down the middle. Sorry, we're just beside the Bates one. Yeah, the one where we go straight down the middle is an overthrown pass, and Bates sort of picked it up. What I found really interesting about that is the way that both of the players who ended up picking up the pass, they actually weren't the original markers of the players who they were intended to. They were both in positions where they were just able to sort of scoop something up. One because they were running to the corner, and one because they were just sort of anticipating the overthrow from Matt Stafford. I was wondering whether that's just like a Raheem Morris who knows the Rams setup really well, to just sort of know these key moments where you can get these interceptions, because there's so many Rams alumni across the league now, because Sean McVay, as we know, is one of the best coaches in the league. We all want to be in his trio. I just wonder whether those two interceptions were plays, because I was looking at it and it almost felt like either schematically or in terms of what you're actually trying, what you expect to happen to the play versus what happened. Like, I don't know what the defense was thinking. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they just have a right man in the right place at the right time. Was there something? I wonder if there's something in the tape from Matt Stafford that Morris and Cole sort of know from being in there, to sort of know, actually, this is when you scoop up Matt Stafford. And whether that actually makes it more interceptable now in the playoffs, if people are looking at the tape and go, oh, actually, if you just keep somebody 10 yards back from a receiver when Stafford is going over the middle, he might overthrow it, and you might just get an easy scoop, scoop and score.
Yeah, absolutely. That the Jesse Bates one is very evident of being in the right place at the right time, and obviously then just rumbling it back in for the score. I think the more impressive one is that second one from Watts, though, and it's not Watts that makes it as impressive as maybe it should be, because Watts makes a phenomenal attempt on the ball. Obviously, he's having to catch that through two different players there in the receiver, who I forget who it is, and Caden Ellis, I think it is, who's the linebacker. Ellis's hustle to be able to make sure that isn't just a blown coverage is phenomenal. And I think he actually loses a bit of the credibility that he should get by the fact that Watts is the one who picks up the interception. Because I also think that it's offensive pass interference, because obviously there's the push off, which I don't want to go on too much of a tangent or a rant here, but I'm pretty sure we see that push off in every single game and it's not flagged. So the ref's inconsistency on that rule is ridiculous. But yeah, Ellis's ability to be able to cover that route all the way and then make sure that he's there to put the receiver off enough that Watts can make the play is definitely been understated here.
Yeah, this is an incredible game, and I don't know, like, do we press the panic button on the Rams now when it comes to the playoffs? I mean, they've lost two games. Crazy game on Thursday night against the Seahawks. This one, they did have to mount a comeback, but you're 21-0 down against the Atlanta Falcons at a time you don't expect. They have a nice easy one against the Cardinals to come up, and then they have to go on the road in the playoffs later on, which will not be difficult no matter who they're playing against, really, unless they somehow get the cash. I don't even think they can get the 5 seed and play the NFC South winner. So, like, I don't know. Like, are we hitting the overreaction Monday on this, or is it just business in the NFL? The Rams are still going to be pretty a team you don't want to face come to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think any team that's led by Sean McVay is a team that you don't want to face because of the fact that they could do so much. Now, I haven't seen Blake Corum's injury report as of yet after last night. I know he went out. I think he's been another understated part of that Rams offense. I know Kyron Williams will get all the plaudits, but Corum's actually delivered as well when he's been on the field, and they've actually got quite a nice little 1-2 running back room there. Like I said, that Devontae Adams injury is going to be a key one for them. They do have Terrence Ferguson, though, who is playing incredibly well in his rookie year. So that there are still parts of that offense to be worried about. Defensively, they shored it up in the second half. How much of that was the Falcons' inability to create offensive plays outside of Bijan Robinson is another question. Obviously, they have Jared Verse, who's still having a good season, but maybe not as good as his rookie year. And Braden Fisk, maybe not quite as good. But they've still got star power across there, and they could thrive in the kind of, pressure of the one and done situation because McVay has been there, done that, and got the ring.
Yeah, very much so. Just on that seeding conversation, if the Seahawks beat the Niners this coming weekend, and the Rams can still finish in the 5 seed if they win against Carolina, but because of that result last night, the Seattle Seahawks can fall no further than the 5th seed. That result is pretty much you're either going to be the top seed or the 5th seed, and that's it when they play against the Niners this coming Saturday. Before we talk about how I think this is the maddest NFL season ever, I want you to at least give us a taste as to why it is the maddest NFL season ever, because there is a possibility that if the Panthers, the Bucks, and the Falcons finish 8-9, 8-9, 8-9, that actually doesn't benefit the Bucks. It benefits the Panthers, and the Panthers then go through. So therefore, regardless, if the Buccaneers win this Saturday, they are praying for the Saints to win on Sunday.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd one. The Panthers have a 3-1 record when you can. So that's the weird thing. The NFL combines the record when there are multiple teams who are tied against each other. The Panthers are currently 3-1 in the division. The Bucks are 2 and the Panthers would be 3-1. I might be getting confused here. Yeah, if the Bucks win, the Panthers would be 3-1 because they've beaten the Falcons twice and they've beaten the Bucks once already. Tampa Bay would be 2-2 and Atlanta would be 1-3. Now, because they combine it favors the Panthers. So actually,
it basically what it does, it creates a mini league of those 3 teams.
Yes, it does.
And in that mini league of those 3 teams, in that situation, Carolina will be 3-1, the Bucks will be 2-2, and the Falcons are 1-3.
Yes.
Whereas
that's
otherwise,
what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to.
Whereas if the Falcons lost, or if they lose to the Saints, they don't create a mini league of those 2 teams, and the Buccaneers get ahead of the Panthers.
Yes.
Is it on head-to-head or is it on strength of win? I can't remember exactly.
I don't think it's on head-to-head. I think it then drops down to the 3rd permutation, which I believe is something like common opponents.
Common opponents, you're correct, yes.
It's incredible. I think I posted the picture the other day in the group chat of like the 12, not the 12 days of Christmas, but the 12 different permutations of getting into the playoffs, which is absolutely insane.
We should nearly go through them because I constantly like people probably just don't know what they are. I'm trying to see if I can dig them out here.
Here we go. I've got it here. So if the two clubs are tied, it's head-to-head against the 2 clubs. Then it's best won-loss tied percentage games within the division, which is, I believe, would be tied. Then it would be best won-loss tied percentage in common games. After that, it's played within the conference. 5 is strength of victory. 6th is strength of schedule. 7th is best combined ranking across conference teams in points scored and points allowed. Then it's best combined ranking in teams in points scored and points allowed. Then it's best net points. Then it's best net in common games. Then it's best net points in all games. Then it comes down to best net touchdowns in all games. And if all of those are the same. They just go coin toss.
Coin toss. I love it. That's the 12th one. Coin toss. It's actually in the rules.
Yeah.
This reminds me too much of like, when Florida was up for the 2000 presidential election and they ended up having to go to the Supreme Court. I can't wait till one of these years, like, it's going to be crazy enough. Like, it's going to go they're going to go to the Supreme Court to decide whether the Giants or the Eagles make the 7th seed or something like that. It's just, it's just going to be nuts. And this is the thing, like, you look at so many things happening this year, the nature of the Seahawks win, the fact that the 49ers, and all credit to them, all the injuries that they have and everything which has gone against them. And they're in a situation now where if they win this weekend, they will be the 1 seed and they will not have to leave their building until September next year, even if they go all the way to the Super Bowl. You have the Bears going from worst to first. You have the Patriots going from worst to first. You have the Broncos finally getting top of the AFC West. You have the Chiefs losing their clutch ability and just completely binning off so many of these games. Crazy game after crazy game. And look, this crazy games aren't unique to this season in terms of the way the NFL is. We have 2 divisions of absolute mid, which are going to be battling off to see who gets the 4th seed this week, the AFC North and the NFC South. NFC South, we've seen that before, I suppose. Like, there's a possibility where we're going into the playoffs on the AFC side of things without Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, or Lamar Jackson. We know we definitely won't have the first 2. Like, talk about our preseason predictions. And I'd love to sit back and say, hey, I called that the Lions wouldn't make the playoffs. But everything else you couldn't possibly get right. This has to be one of the craziest. Even the idea of the Jags potentially being the number 1 seed, even though they played that game where you saw in Wembley when they were useless. Like, the turnarounds and the permutations and everything that's happened this year so far probably makes it the most open and most wild NFL season that I can remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of nailed it with one of the reasons, or maybe the biggest reason, that it's been so crazy, and that is quarterback injuries. And maybe it's a little bit of a show to the league that the fact that you are paying your quarterback so much and there is an over-reliance on that quarterback position without being able to spread the wealth around to have premium players in different positions. Because let's be honest, if you went through all 32 teams, I would say a good 75% of them, their best player is their quarterback. And everybody else is kind of falling into place as the chess pieces that the quarterback is able to deal to. Or it's a defensive player or a defensive unit, that is the difference, and not a singular player, but a unit as a whole. I think if you look down, it's who went down and when they went down. That's why this year has seemed crazy. Burrow, Daniels, Purdy all went down very early. The teams kind of struggled to a degree. I think San Fran obviously did the best out of all of them and to make sure that they were able to push themselves for a playoff position. But that's because when you look at it, Joe Burrow goes down and Jamar Chase is essentially negated from the game. The Bengals' offensive line, we already know, is not very good and their defense needs to strengthen. Jaden Daniel goes down and you don't get the same unpredictability with Marcus Mariota, so that didn't help them. The 49ers, they still had Kittle and they still had McCaffrey, who can make things happen, and they still had Bosa at that time as well, who can be that difference maker on defense. So Cincy and Washington, they just never recovered from it. Then you have the late season injuries that have also caused chaos. You've then got the Colts, who were absolutely flying before Daniel Jones's Achilles injury. Since then, the Phillip Rivers experiment was a bit of fun, but it didn't help them in their ability to go to the playoffs, and they were struggling with Daniel Jones towards the end. But I do feel like if Jones is still under center, they probably are able to drag themselves over the line to get into the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes, that ended any slim, wafer thin possibility that the Chiefs could make it into the playoffs. So that's the thing. When your identity of an offense is run by Burrows or Daniels or Mahomes and they go down, that identity just crumbles. Your team gets dragged into the mid section of teams, and then half the conference is fighting for that wild card spot, and it's anyone's game. And I think that's why it's been so unpredictable. But we've also spoken about it in the group that there's no complete team this year, and that's where we're getting these weird little sort of anomaly kind of results in the fact. Go on.
No, I was just gonna say that's why this Rams result is so bizarre, because if I had to pick one team I thought was the most complete, it was them. But then now I can't even say that they're the most complete team. There's nobody you can trust, like AFC, NFC. There's nobody you can say, yeah, that team, you put them up against, pick whichever dynasty you want from history. They'd give them a good go, because there's just nobody in that level of completeness. Completeness, is that a word? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you either have an explosive offense or you have an elite defense, but you don't have two. And actually, a lot of the teams are good or elite at one side and average on the other. They're not even just above average. And that's the big problem, is the fact that if you can stifle, say, the offense of the Rams, the 49ers, their defense is maybe not quite as good. But if you, in the same sense of, if you can start to put up points on the Seahawks or the Broncos, can their offense recover enough to be able to keep you in the game? And that's going to be the interesting thing going into the playoffs.
Yeah, these playoffs, I think, are going to be the wildest, most unpredictable. And I say that, I remember I was doing it in the newspaper a couple of years ago, where I predicted the playoffs, and I was 6-0 in the wild card week, and I got the rest of them wrong. I was 0-4 in divisional round, 0-2 in the championship round, and then I picked. That was the year that the Eagles played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl the first time, and I picked the Eagles with the Super Bowl. So, if that was, this is a whole other level. I mean, even when we're looking at permutations, and like, it's interesting. You, Brian, on the podcast today, being like, are people going for the playoff tank? In that, are the Bears better off losing so they can play against, the fifth? It's all this kind of thing. And like, I'm in Patriots group chats, and people are saying, what do we want here? Do we want to lose so we're the third seed? So that means we don't have to play against Buffalo. We get to play against LA Chargers. Or do we want to win? And then it's so much of this stuff, because there isn't a predictable, apart from who wins the NFC South. And we've said this before, and then the Buccaneers ended up going and get that win against the Eagles a couple of years ago. But honestly, this year, apart from who wins the NFC South, there's nobody who you wanted to face in the playoffs. And I'm including the AFC North winner in that, because the Steelers and Ravens, whoever wins that game, has the potential to be just a tricky playoff team, defensively, particularly if it is the Steelers. So be interesting to look at. Right, let's move on to Coach of the Year, because I know the two of us we said it's the two things I'm going to talk about here: Coach of the Year, and then any wild card picks for the MVP, because it's Drake May and Matt Stafford up at the top, and maybe Josh Allen up at the top for MVP. That's where the conversation has kind of gone. There's still another week to play out. The voting happens at the end of week 18. It doesn't happen at the end of the playoffs, and the same goes for the Coach of the Year. So we've each picked two names to talk about. I'm going to let you go first, because just to spin through the top seeds, as it were. The favorites from top to bottom for Coach of the Year are Mike Vrabel, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDonald, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, Sean Payton. So if the AV was in fact the AP and you were given your vote, Craig, who would be your top two picks? So we'll go one each, and then we'll continue from there.
Okay, so up first, I have Liam Cohen on my list, because the Coach of the Year title in recent years, if you've looked at it, has been very, very heavily focused on the word turnaround. You very rarely get to see a coach who has had a consistently good team win it. Like, it's always been, oh, this coach has come in and he's saved this franchise. And Liam Cohen might have done that, especially the second half. And it might be the best story in the league, because you look at something like the Jags. He took over a 4-13 team, and he has them at 9-4. He took over a 4-13 team, and he has them on the brink of the playoffs this year. They're within a shout of the AFC South title. We can see that coming up this weekend, and it's not like they're reliant on results. Like, it's within their own hands.
Yeah, it's like I think what you were trying to say earlier is to go from being 4-13, if they win this weekend, to 13-4, which is like talk about flipping the script, to use Coach Orgeron's phrase, in terms of what they had to do in Jacksonville. That is quite an impressive job in Duval, to say it properly.
Indeed, but also let's add the serious weight to the argument. He's a rookie head coach, and there aren't a lot of rookie head coaches who will come in and it clicks instantly, especially sort of as the season goes on. If you start to struggle to begin with, a lot of the time, it just kind of peters out. He's had a massive turnaround. They're going to end a bit of a playoff drought. Their late season momentum is huge. Like, they are really on a roll at the moment. I do think there are some cons that might work against him. They don't get the national spotlight a lot of the time, the Jags. They are obviously one of these smaller market teams, as he made sure to mention in his post-match conference against the Broncos after Sean Payton pointed that out. And a lot of people will argue that the talent was already there. It was just waiting to be unlocked, but you still need the right man to do it. So I think Cohen's is within a shout. It might just be that not having a complete season might count against him, but it has been a very good turnaround the second half.
I think that's a great shout. I think what's interesting about Cohen is, as you say, people say, "Oh well, the talent was there." I mean, we were asking questions about his relationship with Trevor Lawrence, or whether Trevor Lawrence is the guy as late as week 10. Like, let's not put that aside. And you don't go into a restaurant and be like, "Well, sure, he didn't buy the ingredients," and sort of question the quality of the steak that's put in front of you. Like, he's had to go in and do that. I mean, you even think of the cultural change there. There was genuinely a point where they didn't know whether to pack him or Trent Baalke. Decided to get rid of the general manager. Change is what it is, what the club is. And I think that's like a cultural shift in terms of a turnaround. I think it's an important one to go there. So that's a good shout. I'm going to start, and I'll be honest, like, I look what Mike Vrabel has done, obviously, and there will be a Patriots hat on me. And again, their team went from being 4-13 to being, top of the division.
Yeah.
But who I think has been coach of the year, who's been given a lot of adversity and is on the brink of doing something quite remarkable. And this is funny because now I'm going on a bit of a 49ers love in here, as we'll end up talking afterwards, which I don't mean. And well, as a, journalistically, I'm definitely not preparing myself for fact to have to walk in the streets of San Francisco or anything. But I think Kyle Shanahan should at least be in the conversation because of just, I know you were saying earlier, but like the coach of the year is often based on turnaround. I mean, the way I try to see it, every team is at 0-0. What have you had to deal with over the course of 2025? And, to put Mac Jones in there, and he looked really, really good in terms of the way he was coaching. All the injuries have had an offense, all the injuries have had a defense. You might say, well, look, they've had an easier schedule. They've had to live in the same conference or division as the Rams and the Seahawks, and they've beaten both of those teams. And they have a chance to go in against the Seahawks this coming weekend to get what will be a huge, huge victory against the Bears on Sunday night. Again, a huge game with number 1 seed on the line. The offense doesn't blink. The defense needs to hold up a bit, but the offense doesn't blink. They play some great football. They're confident. They're swagger. It doesn't matter that Fred Warner is the one sort of ringing the foghorn and talking to NBC beforehand. And you would love to have him on the field. Your defense still finds a way to get it done. The only big thing against Kyle Shanahan's candidacy for this is the fact that, look, Robert Saleh is the one that's had to deal with the defense and coach them up. And it's the defensive side that have had to deal with more injuries than the offensive side. And if you're given a coordinator of the year, to use Chris Sims' phrase, you would probably say, look, Salah has earned it. And he's one of the best free agent acquisitions they've made in the offseason. That's what he's been able to do with that defense. But I don't know, like, I just felt so impressed by how well they've played. And I'm just looking back, even as the Mac Jones, and it's a big culture thing as well. Mac Jones never stood up in front of the thing and was like, I'm gunning for this job. He knew that when his time would come, he'd step back and he would let Brock Purdy be the number 1. But it didn't affect him at all in terms of how well he played, how much he wanted to push the ball forward. I know, like, the Niners had a series this year when they won and they lost, and they won and they lost, and they kept going. They've now won 6 in a row. Like, that's coaching. Like, he's building up your team and trying to get the most out of what you have. So I've just been very impressed by him, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think the big thing that you could maybe say about Shanahan in the terms of, like, the consistency that I was saying about is actually it's not the turnaround, it's the overcoming adversity that I think that you could kind of say when it comes to what he's had to deal with. You look at the injuries. Purdy was out, Kittle's now out, Bosa gone, Warner gone. That they haven't had Ayuk on the field for reasons that will probably stay in the building for a long time. Like, they haven't had a lot of their core players that they had last year, and they've still been able to churn that out with the added motivation of the fact that there is a Super Bowl in Santa Clara.
Right, have you anybody else on your list?
I do, and I have somebody who goes all against what I've just said about consistency, and I'm going to throw him out there, and that's Mike McDonald for the Seahawks, because he has Seattle winning at a high level for the second year in a row. A lot of year two head coaches tend to have a little bit of a slump where either the message gets a little stale and they need to mix things up, or maybe they don't have the same impact that they have straight away. But he's got back-to-back double-digit wins to just push that over. They're strong on both sides of the ball. Offensively, they can be a little bit hot and cold, but he is a defensive mind, and you're looking at somebody who is getting elite defense out of his team. It's the same thing as you said with San Fran as well. They're in the NFC West. Like, they have to contend with the best, arguably some of the best teams in the division, and they have an opportunity to go up against the 49ers in week 18 and get that statement win that he needs. They just look like a legitimate threat. It's not just like a feel-good story that the Seahawks are now back. They do look good. They've gone out, they went and got Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has been amazing at times, and he has been Sam Darnold at times. But they have the best point differential in the NFL, plus 181. The Rams are second at plus 155. Like, they have consistently put up points and stopped points. But he might not win it depending on how this week goes. And obviously, defensive coaches don't tend to get the plaudits that they maybe deserve. Offensive minds tend to get it a little bit more. And also the expectations were going to be high in Seattle this offseason, so that might count against them as well.
So that's an interesting point you make, and that's the reason why I don't think Mike Vrabel will win, or maybe he isn't worthy of being coach of the year. Fantastic turnaround in New England, and great turnaround in culture and all the rest. But it's the offense that's firing there. The defense has been average, but the offense is amazing. He's a defensive head coach. Does that affect how we really see him? But he is very much a cultural thing as well. So he's not a rookie. He's not a rookie head coach the way that Liam Cohen is. Liam Cohen is a rookie head coach, and his offense is playing amazing. That's why I think he's more worthy of it than Mike Vrabel is. Vrabel knows what he's doing. He's coming back into a building he's been used to, and that changes his candidacy. That offense is purring, and it's amazing. The defense still needs work, and you can look at the strength of schedule and all that kind of stuff, and that's the way that the Patriots will always be knocked. So, but Mike McDonald is an interesting one, and they've had a lot of difficult games. They've had to go into Jacksonville to get a win. It's been really good on the road. Not quite as good as the Patriots are right now, but they've been really good on the road this year. So I think that's a good pick. But if there's one person I'm putting top of the tree, the coach of the year has to be the man who took his shirt off and made sure he fed the people of Chicago. Has to be the man who not only is his presence being so keenly felt in a franchise that has gone from worst to first in the toughest division in football, that has seen Caleb Williams not be an accurate quarterback, but become a quarterback who can lead so many fourth quarter wins for a team who gave up so many fourth quarter wins. But as well as that, his absence in Detroit means that the Lions aren't making the playoffs. Talk about value in coaching. And just the coup that Chicago got in their division, that they're going into this weekend's game against Detroit. It is against Detroit this Sunday, isn't it? And they're not they're less worried about what Detroit have to put up because they have Ben Johnson.
Yep.
Like, I don't even need to throw in stats. We've all loved watching the Bears. And look, I do take slight issue with the fact that there's been two games now where we come out of it and we're like, the Bears lost, but we've a lot more respect for them. The Niners game and the Packers game, which they played in Lambeau a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure people in Chicago are like, well, we don't want to just be more respected. Let's push the ball forward a little bit. But that's that's the bar they've now set themselves for next year. It's like the Irish rugby team. We lost, but we won after every time they get knocked out of the quarterfinal. That's the way people have been talking about this, them losing against the 49ers. I'm like, lads, they can push forward now. They have the best coach, certainly the best offensive head coach in acquirement in football. We hope there is in the second season, but I certainly hope not, because I really like watching the Chicago team. But for me, Ben Johnson is number one.
And it's interesting that he's slowly turned that as well with that team. Like you looked at what Ben Johnson was doing last year with that Lions offense and the plays that he was, putting together, like the fake fumble with Jared Goff and all the other different things. And actually, when he came into the Bears, they had semblance of that, but he did kind of try and like just settle everything down. And now we're starting to really see some of that offensive mind working now that he's built the trust not only in his players, but he now has the complete trust of Caleb Williams and that he trusts him. Like Caleb Williams' biggest knock was always that he played a little bit of hero ball, and you kind of still see that because that's something that's just ingrained in him. But what we're seeing with Caleb Williams is because he's being protected well and because he also has some playmakers who are really coming into their own, he's able to play that hero ball. We're seeing some passes from Williams that we would have lauded about Mahomes when Mahomes was first starting out in the league. So what Ben Johnson is doing is phenomenal. And I think that he's turned a quarterback, and, a lot of rookie quarterbacks, when they get that second head coach, there is a bit of a disconnect, and it takes a little while for it to get going. And we've seen many of rookie quarterback get derailed by having a coaching swap so early into their career. It just hasn't happened. I think that Ben Johnson is the best thing that could have happened to Caleb Williams as an NFL player.
I thought I was talking to Chris Collinsworth there for a second. If we saw Patrick Mahomes, this is the kind of stuff we see with Patrick Mahomes. We're like, what's going on here? But I agree with all you said. So look, it's I'm really interested to see what they do in the playoffs. They're gonna have a home game. Soldier Field is going to host playoff football, which is going to be an incredible thing to watch. I'm just really intrigued to see what they can do. Right, final thing. Right, wild card for the MVP. I've already said who the top three are. Is there a world where if the Niners get the number one seed, that Christian McCaffrey moves up that list? Look at, even as compared to when he came third in the MVP voting a couple of years ago, he had 2,000 total scrimmage yards. He's not far off that point now. He's already reached 1,000 rushing yards. He's heading toward 1,000 passing yards. He's been such a key part of what this Niners offense has been able to do, especially in moments when he's had to do so much of the work because of quarterback injuries, because of injuries to Kittle and whoever else. I mean, you can't even name half the receivers that the Niners have. They don't have Justin Jefferson out there. He's done so much of the work, and he's his 10th season in the league now, and just how well he's done. Well, over 300 carries, nearly 1,200 yards, and his passing is receiving stats. He's at nearly 900. If he gets 110 against Seattle, he's over the 1,000 mark for the regular season as well. He even attempted a pass at some point this year as well. I don't know if you remember that. Didn't quite land there. So just talk about utility player and somebody who you can really rest your franchise on. Because again, I rail against the idea that the most valuable player always has to be a quarterback. I'd love to see a non-quarterback win it. I thought it would be Jonathan Taylor. I thought Saquon Barkley should have won it last year. If I'm picking a non-quarterback, that's who I'm looking at, is Christian McCaffrey.
Absolutely agree. Like we were saying earlier, he kind of helped carry that offense along with others when Mac Jones came in, but he was a predominant figure of that. And it's the consistency that you get with McCaffrey when he is able to stay injury-free. Let's be honest, outside of those injury hit seasons, he has consistently been the best running back in the league. There have been others that have pushed him for it, like Derrick Henry. You've had like this year with Jonathan Taylor, who we said could be an MVP candidate when we covered this about 4 or 5 weeks ago. But what McCaffrey is doing for that offense is huge. He is one of very few running backs in the league who is a legitimate wide receiver when he has to be a wide receiver. You know, he is almost like a dual player. And it's a cheat code to have on your team, and it could be the difference. It really could. I think he's a phenomenal player, and long may it continue.
Except for against the Seahawks this Sunday. Ben somewhere is screaming, it's Saturday, sorry, screaming in my head, being like, no, don't have playing well against us, lads. But no, it'll be interesting. Right, I think that's it for this week's episode of the AV Club. Unless there's anything else in your 3 pages of notes that you wanted to, that we haven't burned through.
I do have a wild card for MVP very quickly.
Oh yeah, sorry. Jeez.
That's all right.
No, it's typical. I talk about my pick, but I won't ever have Craig on his pick. Sorry.
It's all right. You said it was a bit of a 49ers love-in for you today.
Yeah, go on.
Let's go for a Jags love-in for me, because I genuinely think if Trevor Lawrence's entire season matched up with his second half, he might be the MVP. Like outright could be the MVP. He has just it's a complete like beast to beauty. And that's very much playing on the long hair, luscious hair from Trevor Lawrence here. But it is very much from beast to beauty in the terms of how this season's gone. And I am worried that I am secretly starting to like this Jags team after watching them at Wembley for a decade, and just watch them toil with Blake Bortles and some of the other quarterbacks that they've had. It is way too late for this to be a realistic push. I completely understand that. But Liam Cohen was frustrated, as you said earlier in this show. He was frustrated. The pair have finally got themselves singing off the same hymn sheet. Lawrence looks decisive. He looks dangerous. He's confident. And could we say that Trevor Lawrence is now a dual threat quarterback? Because you have to respect his running ability. He's scored so many rushing touchdowns. I think he's had 4 rushing touchdowns in the last 5 games. He's also got 12 passing touchdowns to just 1 interception. Like, that's a hell of a 5-game streak. Somehow he's also turned Parker Washington, who was a kick returner extraordinaire and could dabble a little bit in the wide receiver game, to leading the Jags with 760 yards. Like he's being able to do stuff with wide receivers like Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter obviously has been out. He is a rookie, and he kind of dabbled a little bit on that 2-way player side of things. Brian Thomas Jr. has been injured. He hasn't exactly been at the same level he was.
The biggest surprise to me, Jacoby Myers.
Yep.
Again, and I've said that before, I slagged him off when we did the show of the trade deadline, and I was like, Jacoby Ryder, and like Connor was like, Jacoby Ryder is a bit underrated and maybe in a good team, and I was like, he's not underrated. He's rated. And I've seen him on his Jags team playing with Trevor Lawrence. I'm like, actually, there's a really good player that's been unlocked here.
The thing with the MVP conversation is you're looking at somebody who elevates everything around him. And for me, that's why I think Drake May now gets it over Matthew Stafford, because I feel like with what May is able to do with the supporting cast, he is elevating them. Whereas Stafford is doing that as well, but Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams are very, very good football players. If this was a complete recency bias, I think Lawrence is in the conversation, but because it's going to look at the whole season, he probably loses out. But it's a shame that this doesn't, the MVP doesn't cover the playoffs, because if he lights those playoffs up, he could definitely been within with a shout.
He's the one who really killed off the Chiefs when he fell on his ass the second time, and still managed to run in for the touchdown. And what was that, week 5? So maybe there's a couple of early season bits you could dip into, but I think it's a good shout. I think we're starting to crystallize the idea, especially after Drake May had a 99.8 QBR. And he's still getting 90% accuracy on his throws. That May might be the one who does get the nod. And look, it's better for his paycheck, because let's be fair, but the Stafford has already made his money. May is still early on. I think the Patriots almost don't want May to be the MVP, because that's going to add another $10 million onto his yearly contract when they have to give him money next year or the year after. So, but yeah, I think it's a good shout. Like Lawrence in the second half, and look, there were so many times I was not out on him, but I was convinced that look, next year the Giants are going to go in a different direction. That's not happening there. They were so impressive against Denver a couple of weeks ago. Like that really crystallized for me how well he played, how well the offense played in Mile High. And look, if that was a matchup again in the playoffs, like you put all your money on, not all your money, but you definitely back, Trevor Lawrence to go and take that.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Was there anything else in your notes? Is there anything else?
No,
I forgot
I have depleted my entire 3 pages now.
Rip them up, tear it, gone. That's it. Craig, I wish you a happy new year.
And to you.
I'm sure we'll be all watching some bowl football. I was hoping to get a bit of college football episode done this week, but it's the ways people's schedules are working, not quite. So let people enjoy that in peace in their own time. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.